right, welcome back to the 2023 verdict. As you've seen there, we've got two gentlemen joining us to shed some light on what to expect tomorrow, give us an idea of what's going on in INEC at the moment, and all about the elections tomorrow. Mr. Festus Okoye is National Commissioner, Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC. Just right beside him is Dr. Lawrence Bayode, who is the Deputy Director, ICT for INEC. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
I can imagine we're all set for tomorrow, aren't we? Okay, so...
I'm looking at the smile on Mr. Okoye's face. It's almost D-Day. I don't know, how excited are you?
Yeah, I'm excited because we have prepared and we have prepared well.
Oh, okay. So it means that perhaps maybe we should just pick it up from the PVCs. And not a lot of people expected this huge number of uncollected PVCs. What could have happened?
Uncollected or collected PVCs?
Uncollected.
No. If you look at the total number of registered voters, we have 93.4 million registered voters. And out of this number, 93.3% have collected their PVCs. The total number of uncollected PVCs just hovers around 6.7%. So I think that in terms of PVC collection, we have done very well.
So what were the hiccups for this non-collection?
Well, you know, there were uncollected PVCs arising from the previous registration we did before the 2019 general election. Those ones, the collection rate was still very low. But for the registration we started on the 28th day of June 2021 and ended on the 31st day of July 2022, the collection rate was very, very high.
So how much of progress was made with that extension? Did it achieve the kind of result you wanted?
Oh, definitely. So many of our compatriots collected their PVCs because people now believe that with the progressive improvements the Commission has been making in terms of making sure that the votes of the people count, that definitely that their votes will count this time around. So they were ready to engage the electoral process, and they really made tremendous effort and showed great resilience in terms of PVC collection.
So this 6% now that's uncollected, thereabout, what happens to it? Can they come back after Saturday or what now for the governorship elections?
No, they cannot collect now until we are through with all the elections.
All the elections? Yes. Not even until after the governorship elections?
Exactly. So what we normally do is that the chairman has published the figure of collected and uncollected PVCs. By today, he may likely give the figure in relation to local governments, in relation to polling units and so on. So what we normally do is that we now quarantine the uncollected PVCs with the central bank, and then when we are through with all the elections under this particular cluster, then we will resume a CVR and then make those cards available for donors to collect them.
CVR means continuous voting registration.
Exactly.
So, okay, so you can be registering at the same time. If you have registered before, try to collect your PVC.
Exactly.
Well, tomorrow is D-Day. I think I'd just like to jump right to it. What should our viewers and voters and those who are going to be going to the polling units, what should they expect to see tomorrow? I'm coming to you now, Mr. Bayode.
Thank you, Mark. What they should be expecting to see tomorrow, INEC is prepared to ensure a seamless election on all phases, and the technology that we have also deployed, we are prepared to ensure that this technology works fine tomorrow. So people should expect the best tomorrow, the best of election tomorrow. They shouldn't exercise any fear as to whether or not there will be network failure, whether or not, you know, everything is going to, I mean, the beavers, whether it's going to see their fingerprint or not. There's been lots of tests in that regard, etc., etc. Yeah, for them to be accredited, there should not be any fear of network failure, because the beaver does not need any network for a voter to be accredited. So for a voter to be accredited, no fear of network failure. Maybe you should shed a little more light of how that works actually, because lots of people kept on asking us how, you know, the question about hacking and things like that. So, you know, it's never too much to talk about this so people could know that, yes, you've done what you can and what you should to ensure that this is successful. When we talk about hacking, the last time I was there, I think I told this house and the viewers that, and the Commission is aware of that. The Commission is aware of hacking, and we have done our best to ensure that our systems are protected. Data at rest at all levels protected. Data in transit at all levels protected. We have deployed a lot of tools and techniques to ensure that our systems are protected. So when it comes to hacking, I think we're also good to go. Okay. And in case if there's any successful cyber attack, then we have a failover.
Okay.
Failover, yes.
Mr. Okoye, I do know that INEC has introduced very interesting innovation into this election, which is the IRF. The fact that the BVAS, of course, is one of the interesting innovation, but the fact that voters can see real time, or almost real time, how the results are being transmitted even to INEC. So the results sheet, the results are taken, the photo is taken with the BVAS and then uploaded. I don't know, is that the same portal through which INEC is going to be getting its results, the IRF?
Yes, it's the same portal through which the Commission will be getting the results. This is because if you look at Section 50, Section 60, and Section 64 of the Electoral Act, it makes it mandatory that the Commission must upload polling unit level result into our INEC result viewing portal. And it is that polling unit level result that will be used for the first level of collation, which is at the Registration Area Collation Center. And as you know, we have 8,809 registration areas. So in these registration areas, we are going to have collation officers who are going to collate results from the registration areas or electoral wards. So the collation officers will also have the advantage of also seeing the results from the IRF as they are uploaded in real time.
Okay, so perhaps you should take us through the scenario from showing up on election day.
Yes.
Perhaps we'll go through that, because I was going to start with the results, but I know we'll talk about that. Lots of people are anxious about what time will they come through, but when they show up on that day and then the thumbprint, take us through that process from the get-go, from 8 o'clock or 8:30, sorry.
Now the polls will open at 8:30 in the morning. And we expect that our election duty staff, in terms of the presiding officers and assistant presiding officers, will be at their duty post tomorrow as early as 7:30. And then they will set up the polling unit. Now, we have emphasized the setting up of the polling unit in such a way that it will guarantee the secrecy of the vote. The voting cubicle must be placed in such a way that nobody sees a potential voter trying to thumbprint. However, the law requires us to keep the ballot box in the full view of all present, and that the ballot box must be so kept until elections are over. So you thumbprint in secret, and then you vote in the open. Secondly, Section 47, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act makes it mandatory that any person who wants to vote, any person who approaches a presiding officer on election day, must approach the presiding officer with his or her PVC. Because I have seen a lot of misinformation and disinformation going around that people can just go somewhere and print a slip and then go to the polling unit. No, you must go to the polling unit with your PVC on election day. Now, the presiding officer must also confirm with the voters register that your name is on the voters register, that your picture is on the voters register, and that your details are on the voters register. After they confirm all those ones, then you will pass through the BVAS, because this is the game changer and this is the ultimate arbiter. Every registered individual must pass through the BVAS, and the BVAS must be in a position to read at least one of your fingerprints. Because during the voters registration exercise, when we use the INEC voter enrollment device, the 10 fingers were captured. So it must be in a position to capture at least one. If it's unable to capture any of them, it must be in a position to capture your facials. If the BVAS is unable to capture your 10 fingerprints and is unable to capture your facial, what that means is that you are engaged in identity theft, and we will not allow you to vote. At that point in time, we will ask you to leave the polling unit. And if you refuse to leave the polling unit, the presiding officer, who is the managing director of the polling unit at that point in time, has the right and the power to order a police officer present to take you into custody. So you must conform to the dictates of the presiding officer on election day. It is after successful accreditation that you are given a ballot paper and then you go and cast your vote. So that is the procedure on election day. And I think that this is very important, so that people do not show up on election day claiming that they are registered voters, they didn't collect their PVCs and so on. You must go to the polling unit with your PVC.
In fact, some are even saying that, well, they understand that they could go to the polling unit with some number or so on their PVC, and so if you say, well, scan, check, and then they see the number, you can be allowed to vote. Is that right?
No, we are not going to allow anybody to vote. Any individual that does not come to the polling unit with his or her PVC will not be allowed to vote. What we normally do is that the BVAS has the capacity to use different means to call up the person's details from the BVAS. They can use the last 6 digits of your voter identification number to call up your details. They can even use your surname to call up your details, or use the QR code to call up your details. But the Section 47 says it is mandatory. You must come to the polling unit with your PVC. And Section 47, subsection 2 says you must also pass through the BVAS before you can be issued with a ballot paper.
Okay, so Dr. Baide, take us through the procedure for the BVAS, because we understand it's supposed to be in a certain situation or condition before the voting starts. And what's the possible worst-case scenario for people who come in there to vote?
The presiding officer, before the votes commence, will display the BVAS.
Display it.
Yes, to show that the BVAS is ready for the election, to show that the BVAS is configured for the polling unit where the presiding officer is displaying the picture.
The picture of the people or the voter will display. Or what are we supposed to see first?
Yeah, this is just the first thing you see is the login details. Sorry, the login window where the user will log in into the device. And where that is done, you can show them that this system is configured for. You can show them that this system is configured for this polling unit. If it is not configured, the system will tell you that this system has not been configured. So you have to show them that this system is configured for this polling unit. You have to tell them that the number of voter for this polling unit is 10, for example.
And max, it should not be more than what, 7? How much? 1,250. That is the threshold the commission is using on every BVAS. So, for example, if the number of on a register, the hard copy is 10, then it means that the total number of voters that has been downloaded onto this machine will also be 10. So you have to let them know that the total number of voters on this system is 10. And you have to let them know that at the commencement of vote, that the total number of accredited voter is 0. Sorry, Mr. Okoye, please, at what point what was the explanation you gave again for splitting polling units?
Yes, what we have done, that's what he's talking about, threshold. The threshold for each polling unit per our commission's own regulations and guidelines is 1,250. So if we have a polling unit that has more than 1,250 registered voters, we'll provide an additional BVAS for that particular polling unit. So for instance, if you have 3,000 registered voters in a particular polling unit, what we do is that we look at take it alphabetically. When we get to 1,250, we cut it off. So a particular BVAS will only have the details of 1,250. And then the second BVAS will now continue from there. So it is impossible for you to go and cast your vote using the other beavers and then come back to this place because your details are not in this one because the details has been split into two.
What did I hear? 750. Did I imagine that figure?
The 750 was the threshold we used for the continuous voters registration exercise when we are registering new voters. So for each polling unit, we make sure that no new polling unit registers more than 750 registered voters. But our polling units as they are, as of today, there are some that have up to 3,000 registered voters. We asked people during the continuous voters registration exercise whether they wanted to move from where they are to a new polling unit, but very few people agreed to move, and we did not want to disrupt the voters register in such a way that it will create confusion on election day.
Okay, so Dr. Bayode, go ahead. You were making the point as to what we will see on election day.
So these are all the things that you see to show that this machine is ready for the election. The machine is configured. The total number of voters has been downloaded onto the system, and you can also see that the total number of accredited voters at the commencement of poll is 0. If it is more than 0 before the commencement of poll, then something is wrong.
So if the officer there will show what first few people in front, because are people supposed to gather around and then you show everybody or something? Yeah, how does that work?
Before the commencement of poll, the presiding officer will address the voters. Those that are around before the poll commences, the presiding officer has a mandate to address them. The way you address them, showing them the ballot box, that the ballot box is empty before the commencement of poll, that is the same way you show them that this system is ready for accreditation.
Yeah, but they need to see something, right?
Yeah, you just show them that this is the, for example, this is the total number of registered voters on this system is 18. That is to say, the total number of registered voters, if it is splitted, you tell them. For this, because when it is splitted, the splitted polling unit are also going to be behaving as the, because just like the commissioner said, when a polling unit is splitted, you add additional machine to that polling unit. So the way I am describing this machine in this polling unit, that is the same way another presiding officer will be describing the machine in the splitted polling unit.
So if I was in the queue or at the start, this polling unit has more than 1,250. So what? We're supposed to tell them that, look, at that 1,250th person, the next group of people will go to another area or another beavers will come up for that?
The way the system is designed is there's queue controller for every point, even if where we splitted where the polling unit is splitted. For example, the Assistant Presiding Officer 3 is a queue controller in our own process. For at every point where the polling unit is splitted, there will be a quick controller carrying like how do I say this now? Like something to describe that for this particular point, we are going to be attending to those whose surname start with alphabet A. So if your surname start with alphabet A, the queue controller will be handling that. The queue controller will be handling that, and you will see that, okay, for those who are on alphabet A, you come to this queue. If your surname starts from, for example, J, then you go to the next.
So all of this will be done before we start the voting process.
Yes, you will see the queue controller carrying something like a banner showing that for this particular queue is if your surname starts with alphabet A, B, C, D, E. Then the next queue, you will see if your surname starts from alphabet F, you join that. So if the PU is splitted into 3, you will see 3 machines in that polling unit, and you will see 3 queues, 3 lines for that particular location.
I think my colleagues in Lagos have questions about the same beavers, so please go ahead.
All right. Well, thanks, Chamberlain. I know that this is a big one for INEC, and I'm glad we're doing this right now so we can help Nigerians who, of course, this is also a big one for them to understand what to expect tomorrow. So some issues we'd like to raise. First, when you were talking about the accreditation process, well, the BVAS has the capacity to search for, I think, voters on the register via another means. And you talked about the last, was it 6 or 4 digits on the PVC. And I'll refer to the mock exercise that INEC carried out recently, which I think was very interesting, helps us to understand areas we need to cover up on. And some recommendations were made, especially by Yaga. And I'd like to speak to this one, because for some people, for example, if they come with their PVC to the polling unit, I actually brought my PVC for effect, they come with their PVC to the polling unit and somehow, I mean, who knows, the accreditation fails. I mean, we saw that some cases during that mock exercise. And they said, well, I have my PVC. How about you check and see if I'm actually on the voters register for this particular polling unit? And, you know, the digits are punched in and their details come up without accreditation. And I'm talking about the fingerprints, 10 fingerprints, and the other biometrics. Will they be able to vote?
No, we will not allow you to vote. This is because the fact that you have come to a polling unit with a PVC does not presuppose that you are the owner of that particular PVC. So the only confirmation, the only confirmatory process that ensures that the person who is facing the presiding officer is the person who we registered on election day, is the fact that the BVAS must be in a position to read at least one of your fingerprints, and if he's unable to read any of your fingerprints, he should be in a position to read your facials. So you can go and procure PVC anywhere, and you can manipulate it in such a way that the picture on the PVC will now become your own picture, and then you come to the polling unit with it. When we look at the name, we ask you of your name. You will give us the name on the PVC. We check the voters register. The voters register is bearing the same name, but it doesn't prove anything. What proves that you are the person who you claim to be is the ability of the BVAS to read at least one of your fingerprints and also read your facials. I was in one polling unit in somewhere in Abia State, and a woman came. All the domestic election observers that were there, representatives of the political parties, all agreed that yes, the woman claims that the name on the PVC was her own, but that the picture was so blurred in such a way that nobody could even identify her. And when we the BVAS tried to read her fingerprints, the 10 of them failed. Her face failed. And all the domestic observers, including representatives of the political parties, agreed that she is engaged in identity theft and that she's not who she purports to be. And so you must pass through the BVAS. If you're unable to pass through the BVAS, we will not allow you to vote, and that is the law.
Right, so BVAS is the ultimate for this one. But still taking a look at some of the recommendations, one of those recommendations in Yaga's report says that voters, for that mock exercise, I'm referring to the mock exercise now, that voters were denied accreditation in 20% of polling units because the BVAS could not verify their fingerprint and authenticate their facial identity, and says that the category of voters mostly affected were those who registered in 2011. And we're made to understand that at that time, you know, the, what was it called again? The, all of those accreditation processes, the authentication, I'm trying to remember the term used for it, the biometrics, right? The facials and all of that, but maybe not that advanced at that point. So using new technology to try to verify old data was quite an issue. And I'd like Dr. Bayode to speak to that as well. So for category of those people who might be affected, clearly not as a result of their own fault, what happens? Isn't that tantamount to disenfranchising them?
Well, thank you. I didn't see that report, but I want to say that it's very, very difficult for your biometrics to change. That is to say that your fingerprint that were captured 10 years ago can still be used to identify you with the BVAS, both your fingerprint and your facial. So the biometrics that were captured in 2011 are still very much good enough to be used to identify or to verify voters. So I didn't see the report where Yaga stated that the biometrics that were captured in 2011 didn't go through during the mock exercise. We have our own report, and everyone that came out for the mock exercise were able to be accredited using either their fingers or their facial. So whether you were registered in 2011, whether you were registered recently, the BVAS is capable of authenticating either of your biometric with either the finger or the facial. You will be accredited if, just like the commissioner said, if you are not engaging in identity theft.
Okay, so I'll take this back to Mr. Okoye, and it's going to be back and forth because we need to get all of the information we can from both of you gentlemen this morning. And this one goes, way back into the process. I mean, we're talking about polling unit activities, but let's step back a bit and talk about logistics deployment, because a lot of the issues we find on election day is usually as a result of sometimes late deployment, late arrival, and all of that. Added to the fact that at this time we're faced with the Naira redesign issues, questions about how, some of these people who will serve as transport officers and all of that will be paid and stuff. So speak to that, because I think it's a major part. How is logistics deployment going for INEC? Have you been able to pay, for example, if you're working with the NURTW, have you been able to at least release funds to pay them? Because things should have happened already today, not waiting up until tomorrow. So please speak to the logistics angle of election materials and all.
Well, election has already commenced. This is because prior to this particular period, we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the National Union of Road Transport Workers. We also entered one with the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners and with the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria. And we made it clear that we need at least 138,000 vehicles and trucks for purposes of moving election materials and moving the beavers and moving election duty personnel. We also made it clear that we are going to hire at least 4,000 boats and canoes for riverine areas and at least 88,000 motorcycles for places that are not accessible by vehicles. Now, the contract we had with individual drivers is to the effect that they are going to move our materials from the central bank, from our offices to the various local governments, and from the various local governments to the various registration area centers, and from the various registration centers to the polling units on election day. And then they must also engage in reverse logistics to bring back our materials and also bring back our personnel. That process has already commenced. In some of the states of the Federation, the movement of the beavers ballot papers and resources started on Wednesday. The bulk of our state offices moved election materials to the various local governments yesterday. So as of today, activities are taking place at the various local governments preparatory to their moving to the registration area centers before they deploy at the first light on Saturday. There are some places where we are going to deploy direct from the local governments, direct to the polling units, while in some places we are going to cluster the election duty staff in what we call the super racks, super registration area centers. So in terms of the contract we have with individual drivers, we have assessed funds from the central bank in all the state branches of the central bank for the payment of these categories of transporters that we engage. And we also have money for payment of the transport allowance of core members and also for small services. But for the bulk of the activities we are going to carry out, they are going to be carried out through electronic transfer. And so in terms of our services, in terms of our engagement with the transport unions, we are doing well. And the movement of activities has shifted to the local government areas because we have concluded activities at the state offices of the commission.
That's good to know, Mr. Okoye, and I'd like you to also speak to some other aspects of deployment. Force Public Relations Officer on the verdict 2023, and he said that a threat analysis was conducted in the deployment of officers, and the areas that require heavy deployment of security operatives, they deployed heavy security operatives to those areas, and those that are considered mild, an equivalent number of security operatives were deployed. So based on that, Mr. Okoye, should we take it for granted that areas of concern, like the northwestern part of the country, Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara, in those areas that are reportedly held by bandits, elections will hold there, and as a result, sensitive election materials have been deployed to those areas?
Well, security remains a concern in this particular election, and we've been having almost regular meetings with the various security agencies under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, both at the national level, at the state level, and at the various local governments. And we've been receiving security briefing and briefing from the various security agencies relating to security challenges in some polling units, local governments, and registration areas. So we are going to deploy to all the polling units, but based on security concerns and based on security briefing, there may be polling units that we are not able to deploy to. In such instances, we may cluster those polling units into registration areas, and then the different security agencies will provide a security cover and a security cordon to allow people from that particular registration area to vote. But each state will be taken based on its own specific security issues and security challenges. So in most of the places where we have this challenge, the Commission is meeting with the security agencies and also with the different stakeholders, because we want to carry all the stakeholders along with us in all the things we do. So I know that there were meetings going on in some of the local governments in Imo State yesterday relating to the clustering of some of the polling units into registration areas and providing security cover and security cordon to enable voters to vote. And the same thing is taking place in places like Zamfara and Katsina. So we are working collaboratively with the different security agencies to make sure that all registered voters, even those who are in difficult circumstances, in difficult situations, are able to exercise their democratic franchise.
Speaking of difficult circumstances, let's talk now about IDP camps. There's been concern over the years about their ability to participate in the elections. So there's news that there's new operational guidelines for IDPs to vote. I'd like you to talk us through it. What's the deployment like for them, and how will they vote in this election?
Well, the law is very, very clear that if persons have been displaced on account of difficult circumstances, on account of flood, on account of insurgency, on account of issues that are not related to their ability to exercise their mandate, that the Commission must make special arrangements for them. And based on that, we've been we have an IDP policy and an IDP framework, which we have revised. We have the location of all the IDP camps throughout the federation, and we have profiled all the IDP camps. Those who lost their PVCs when they were leaving their environment, we made sure that they got new PVCs. Those who were not able to register, we made sure that we registered them. So in all the IDP camps, we have the number of persons in those IDP camps. We have reconfigured and re-engineered their registration areas or electoral wards. So they are going to vote in those IDP camps in accordance with their registration areas. But for the IDP camps, for the IDPs who are in the houses of friends or in the houses of relatives, there is absolutely nothing we can do for them. They may not be in a position to vote because we cannot cluster them in the IDP camps. And for IDPs who have left their natural habitat and moved to different states and we are not able to transfer their polling units, unfortunately, they will not be in a position to vote. But for IDP camps who are in, for IDPs who are in IDP camps, they will definitely vote, and we have their number, we have the location of the IDP camps, and we have made special and adequate arrangements to make sure that they exercise their franchise.
That's refreshing to know. I know that my colleague Kaide has more questions on the BVAS for you, but just before we leave the trouble spots, Mr. Koye, has it come to the notice of the Commission that PVCs were found in a forest in Anambra, in an area called Akamili, and these PVCs were moved to a certain media house and then moved again to a certain place where they were now being distributed? Has this come to the notice of the Commission, and what's the Commission doing to dispel insinuations that this is some form of deliberate attempt at voter suppression? Because this is not the first time that PVCs were found somewhere in some places in the southeast.
We are aware that there are some people and some forces that want to delegitimize this particular election. Now, the total number of registered voters in that particular local government hovers around 250,000. But I watched that video, and they were talking about millions of PVCs that were found. Incidentally, in that particular local government, we have almost over 99% of PVC already collected. Now, we have instructed our resident electoral commissioner and the electoral officer for that particular local government to make a report to the DSS and to the police, and then those people who were responsible for that particular thing must be invited. Let them tell us where they found those PVCs, how they found those PVCs, because we need to investigate and know whether those PVCs are the PVCs of the commission or whether some people cloned those PVCs in order to delegitimize the work of the commission and also delegitimize the electoral process. So we have made the necessary reports. But I want to assure you that for that particular local government they mentioned, that the total number of registered voters in that particular local government hovers around 250,000. So if the PVCs that were found in millions for a local government that registered just around 200,000 voters, then some people have a question to answer. So let those people who found those PVCs and the radio station where those PVCs were displayed, let them go to the DSS and to the police and make a report. And if they don't make that particular report, we have also instructed that the report should be made and they should be called in to account how they came about those PVCs. Because we have not heard of a situation where people hunters are now hunting PVC rather than hunting animals in the forest. So let them come and explain to us how they came about hunting PVCs in the forest.
Well, very interesting analogy there, but let's go back to Dr. Bayode now. And I remember you talking about data at rest, data on the move. A lot of people may have wondered, what do you mean by that? So voting is done with, right? Counting has begun. Don't forget, BVAS will be used to upload or at least send the result to the IRF and by extension to INEC and all of that. So help us understand the process. Once voting is done with, because I think that's what a lot of people will be looking forward to as well. So once voting is done with, what's the process to move in the data? What kind of arrangements have been made for the network services that will be used? I know some people were saying maybe INEC has some sort of agreement with a special company or a certain satellite allocation and all of that. So what is the preparations for that and what should we be expecting?
Yeah, as soon as election is done, the first thing that the presiding officer will do is to first transmit the accreditation data to the back-end system. What we did during the mock exercise was also to move this accreditation data to the IRF so that people can also see the total number of voters accredited for each polling unit on the result viewing portal. So the accreditation data on the BVAS is what we refer to as data at rest. And by the time it also gets to the backend server, it's also resting there. It is also data at rest there. But by the time it's moving from the beavers to the backend via the internet, then we refer to it as data in transit. So these are the analogy used there. So the upload of result is also done using the beavers. As soon as the result is the ballot is sorted, the result is recorded on the form EC8A, and that is the polling unit level result sheet. As soon as that is endorsed by the presiding officer and endorsed by all the agents available at the time, the presiding officer will use the same beavers to take the picture of that the form EC8A and transmit that to the backend, the IRF, where the public can view the polling unit result. So that is transmitted in PDF format to the backend. So when that is also leaving the beavers to the backend, the PDF format on the beavers, that result on the beavers, at that time is also data at rest on the beavers. So by the time you transmit it to the IRF, it's data in transit. And by the time it gets to the IRF, it also becomes data at rest on the IRF. So all this from the data at rest to the data in transit to the data at rest at the back end, all this it's secured by tool and techniques that the commissioner has put in place.
To the connection, the data
all right,
connection
so now
component.
concerning these beavers, we've already seen some demonstration going on there in terms of the queue, what people would expect, and the results, the IRF. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that IRF and the results. What do we expect? Because I think, I'm not sure if, wait, maybe we should go this way. Now, are people still going to be able to view those results as they uploaded on IRF INEC portal?
Yes, of course, it's real time. From the polling unit is straight to the IRF. And if there are any issue, by the time because by the time the presiding officer gets to the collation center, it tenders the beavers to the collation officer. It tenders the hard copy of that result to the collation officer. The collation officer is looking at the physical result and the one that was already transmitted to the IRF. Just oppose these two and see if there's any discrepancy, checking whether what is seen on the IRF is the same thing that is before him physically. So if everything went well, then the collation officer go ahead to enter into his own form at that level, the form EC8B at that level.
And that form will also still be displayed?
No, we are not transmitting that form. We are only transmitting form EC8A.
Yeah, that EC8A.
Yes.
Much as they will snap it and upload it, they will still display it as required, isn't it?
Yes, it will still be displayed at the polling unit. That's the form 60E at the polling unit. It will be displayed there. But the result itself will be taken to the collation officer and the beavers. The collation officer checks the accredited data, checks the form EC8A, that's the result sheet, and also check the one on the portal to see if there are any discrepancy, whether they are the same.
If there is any discrepancy, which result do they then go with?
No, let me just explain this.
Yeah.
Now, we have to understand the fact that at the level of the polling unit, we have also accredited polling agents or party agents. So all the political parties, we have their party agents or polling agents at the polling unit. Now, at the period of entering the scores of the candidates into form EC8A, the polling agents will be there at the polling unit. So the presiding officer will sign from EC8A, which is the polling unit level result, and also stamp it. The polling agents or the party agents, if available, must also countersign the polling unit level result.
Okay.
Before it is uploaded or transmitted through the IRF. Now, after the accreditation data is transmitted and the polling unit level result, that is from EC8A, is transmitted, the party agents or the polling agents, together with the presiding officer and the assistant presiding officers, will physically carry that from EC8A and the beavers and other election materials to the registration area center or the electoral ward, where they will hand over that from EC8A and the beavers to the collation officer. The collation officer will look at the physical result as handed over to him. He or she will also look at the beavers as handed over, and then look at the from EC8 or the polling unit level result as already transmitted through the IRF and the accreditation data as already transmitted before entering the scores into from EC8B, which is the registration area result. Now, if there's a dispute relating to the physically transmitted result, so to say, and the electronically transmitted result, by our own regulations and by our own guidelines and procedures, the electronically transmitted data and the electronically transmitted result will take precedence.
So, what measures has INEC put in place to avoid overvoting?
The measures that are in place to avoid overvoting are: one, that we have trained the presiding officers and assistant presiding officers very, very well. That two, we have also told them on how to configure the polling unit, the architecture of the polling unit, in such a way that the moment somebody is accredited, the person will be seen, and the moment the person is putting the ballot on the ballot box, the person will be seen. The third one is that we have also accredited polling agents or party agents who are supposed to be the eyes and the ears of the political parties at the polling unit. We have accredited domestic election observers. We have also accredited the media. So and then the voters, we have also encouraged them that if you vote and you want to remain behind and see how things are going, you are free to remain behind, so long as you do not interfere with the voting process and the way things are going. And so I believe that with all these galaxy of people there, that there's no way we are going to experience overvoting. What is called overvoting? Overvoting is one stray ballot entering the ballot box without accreditation, because the law as of today is that for overvoting to occur, the number of ballots on the ballot box must be more than the number of voters accredited by the beavers. That is it. So it's to prevent one stray ballot from entering the ballot box. So if all these people are vigilant, if political parties train their party agents or polling agents well, for them to even understand what the beavers does, for them to understand the functions of the presiding officers and assistant presiding officers, and also for them to understand the voting process and voting procedure, things are going to go well.
One of the concerns that people have had pre this election is the availability of Naira notes. I mean, before now, we've been talking about Naira redesign and the scarcity of Naira notes that has now brought. And one of the things we heard that this was supposed to curb is vote buying. Now, one of the ways we have seen that people buy votes is that, people are allowed to take phones into the private cubicle when they go to thumbprint. Will people be allowed to take their phones into the private cubicle this time around?
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission addressed the media yesterday, because we have commenced our daily briefing, and he made it clear that the use of phones in voting cubicles remains banned, and that people will not be allowed to use their phones or any electronic device that has the capacity to take pictures into the voting compartment. So if any individual attempts to snap the way he or she has voted for purposes of trading at the level of the polling unit, the person is opening himself or herself up for arrest. So we are not going to allow that to happen. Moreover, we are collaborating with the ICPC, with the EFCC and other security agencies. They are going to have both plainclothes and uniform personnel at different locations on election day to make sure that nobody violates the sanctity of the polling area. So those who want to trade should go to the market and trade. The polling units and the principles of the polling unit are for voting and voting alone, because that PVC people are holding is the Independent National Electoral Commission has the proprietary right in that particular PVC, and that PVC has power and it has potency, and that is the only instrument that can change government. And so we are not going to allow people to use that particular instrument for purposes of trading.
So that answers the question on whether or not people will be allowed. So you are not allowed to take your phones into the booth, the voting booth. Yeah. And let me quickly ask you. You also, I do know that there was also this controversy at some point where a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Olisagbakuba, asked INEC to seek interpretation as to what the qualifications or what the criteria is in the Constitution for what qualifies anyone to be declared a winner. We do not know if INEC eventually went ahead to obtain that clarification, but what criteria is INEC going to go with to declare any candidate a winner in this particular election, particularly the presidential election?
Look, there are 4 senior advocates of Nigeria as staff of the commission. And then there's a national commissioner of the Independent National Electoral Commission that is a professor and a senior advocate. And then there are 2 other national commissioners that are over 38 years post-call. So there is store of legal knowledge within the commission. The instruments of the commission, the electoral legal framework, consists of the Constitution, the Constitution, the Electoral Act, our regulations, and our guidelines. We have looked at Section 132, 133 and 134 of the Constitution. We have also looked at Section 178 and 179 of the Constitution. Those are the sections that contains the threshold on how to make a declaration. And the Commission is fully aware of that particular threshold. And the Commission is conscious of its responsibility to the Nigerian people. The Commission will make a declaration based on its own understanding of the provisions of the Constitution and not the provisions of the law.
Okay. How long do you think the process will take from when voting eventually starts to when a winner is declared in the presidential elections?
We are hopeful that this time around that process will be completed and concluded speedily. But you know, the geography of this country is, can be quite dangerous. There are some places in this country where our election duty staff stay on the high seas for 3 hours, meandering through the creeks. And we have to get results out from these places. There are also some places that are very, very mountainous where we have to hire human carriers to take our presiding officers up. We have to get results from all these places. But our resident electoral commissioners and electoral officers know the huge responsibility they shoulder, and they have assured us that they are going to work assiduously to make sure that we have results as early as possible, because we don't want the anxiety of Nigerians to stay for too long. We want to complete and conclude this process speedily so that Nigerians will have a president of their choice.
We have seen how long it took in 2015. We saw how long it took in 2019. Is INEC working on shortening the time? Do you have a target, for instance?
There is no election where you can have a target. The electoral process, our experience in this election is that sometimes those places that you think are very, very calm can suddenly change and become very, very problematic in terms of conducting election. And the small election that you think that you can go and complete and conclude speedily becomes very, very problematic. And those places you think are very, very problematic will not pose any challenge on election day. But in this election, we have prepared, and we have prepared well, and we have trained our officers and we have trained them well. And we also expect that with the level of training we have given to them, with their ability to operate the beavers very comfortably, and with the galaxy of registration area technical support staff that we have trained, that we are going to conclude this election speedily, and Nigerians will have a conclusion.
Okay. So, barring any hitches, how long are we looking at?
I will not. I'm not a clairvoyant, and I cannot go that direction.
But okay, maybe Dr. Biden can also respond. How soon can results start coming in?
Look, the moment, just a minute, Biodem.
Yeah.
The moment, we have three levels of election this Saturday: the House of Representatives, the senatorial, and the presidential. Now, the moment we conclude election at the polling unit, it goes to the registration area. Then from the registration area, it goes to the local government. There are some federal constituencies that are made up of only one local government. The result will come in from that particular local government. It's possible that that particular local government is the federal constituency collation center, and then there will be a collation officer and a returning officer for that federal constituency. For the Senate, it moves up to the senatorial district, and then the senatorial collation center and returning officer will make a declaration. But for the presidency, it moves from the polling unit to the registration area. From the registration area, it moves to the local government. From the local government, it moves to the state. And then there will be a state collation officer who will collect the results, the entire results for presidential election at the state level. And then it will now be brought to the International Conference Center, which is the National Collation Center and Situation Room. That is where the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission will collect the results and announce the winner, because the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria makes the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission as the chief electoral officer of the Federation and the returning officer for the presidential election. Only himself can make a return. No other individual in Nigeria can make a return in relation to presidential election.
So, what happens when, because you say we can view the results on IRF, as it's been uploaded, right?
What we are viewing on IRF is polling unit level result.
Polling level unit result.
Polling unit level result is what you are viewing on IRF.
Oh.
You are not viewing the collected result from the registration area. You are not viewing the collected result from the various local governments. You are not viewing the collected result at the state level. So it is when they bring the result from the state level to the National Collation Center, and the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission begins collation, where he's going to display the results as they are being collected on the screen for people to see. But it is only the polling unit level results that you are going to see on IRF.
So that means no matter how IRF collates and anything, whatever they have there, even when they think they have all the details, it is when the commission, what time lag are we even looking at? When all the results come through, perhaps on IRF, for instance, and then from that time up until when the commission announces the final results. Could you explain that scenario for us?
Let me make this clear. Under Section 25 of the Electoral Act, only the Independent National Electoral Commission is permitted to declare election results and make a return, to make a declaration and a return. And if you also look at the other sections of Section 120, it is also an electoral offense for you to post or make a false declaration. So I think that the task of making a declaration and a return is the exclusive responsibility of the Independent National Electoral Commission and no one else. Yes, people can take polling unit data from the polling units. They will know who has scored so and so number of votes at a polling unit. They will also be given result sheets at the level of the registration area, at the level of from EC 8E. Throughout all the levels. But in terms of the final declaration and return, only the commission can do that. We are envisaging that the results for federal constituencies will come in on time, and the results for the senatorial districts will also come in on time. But there will be differentials in terms of how early results from the states we come in. There are some states that have airports, so there's a possibility that if they finish on time, they will enter the next available aircraft and come to Abuja. There are also some states where you have to travel from one state to the other for you to catch a flight to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, to come and hand over the results. So it will be it will not come. The results will not come in at the same time. They will come in differentially, and we hope that
they will come in early.
Given the level of preparations we have made, and also given the quantum of work we have put in, that these results will come in earlier than they came in 2019.
So regardless of the fact that this information, the results will be available on INEC's portal, the IRF, it is important that our viewers still note that we'll still be waiting for the manual collation of the results at the collation center, at the National Collation Center. Is that correct?
What you are going to be seeing on the IRF are only polling unit level results. So if you are doing your own collation using different tools on the computer, you cannot make a declaration and you cannot make a return. Only the collation officer can make a determination on what is valid and what is not valid.
All right, we'll have some questions coming through. I mean, somebody likes to know. He says in his polling unit, he discovered that they just sent them a message asking that your polling unit has now been moved almost in the same area from one location to the other.
Yes.
And they thought, under what circumstances can that happen?
No, it's exactly what we are just describing. Those who if for instance, let me give you an example. There was we have a situation where you have 5,000 registered voters in one polling unit, and that particular polling unit is located in a secondary school or in a primary school. And then we converted voting points and voting point settlements into full-fledged polling units and kept them in the same vicinity, in the same primary school. So what we have done is to redistribute voters in the same contiguous area, so that you do not have a situation where 5,000 people will cluster within one, we cluster around one beavers, and then the next beavers has only 10 registered voters, the next one has only 5 registered voters in the same primary school, for instance. So what we did was that we redistributed voters within the same within the same area, within the same primary school. So what we have done is that we have sent messages to all those voters telling them, look, when you get to that place, your polling unit is now number 4 rather than number 1, but it is in the same vicinity and in the same premises.
So how did they, because I know you know that there will be some skeptics who are wondering if they didn't get this information. So wait a minute, how are we sure this is INEC? But they just need to go there.
We didn't send the message to everybody. We sent the message to around 6 million registered voters who were affected by this redistribution in the same contiguous areas. So we didn't send it to everybody. It's only those who were directly affected that we send the messages to.
Okay, so that's going to be pretty interesting. So we'll just go to our correspondent. I mean, we have then different states trying to understand what will happen, where they are with their commissioners, movement of logistics, materials. So all of that we'll bring to you in just a moment, but we'll still have the gentleman here with us to respond to a couple of more issues ahead of tomorrow. We want to get out as much as we can for all of you. But just give us a moment, we will be back.
The years of preparations by INEC, of course by you, this is where the rubber meets the road. We did tell you that we'll go around states of the nation just to give you a feel of what's going on right there. So we're starting off with Bayelsa State in South Nigeria, where our correspondent Dobra Timiwood joins us live from Yenagoa, the state capital. Dobra, I see you're surrounded by voting materials. What a way to send a message home. Bayelsa with just over 1 million registered voters. Can you tell us what is going on where you are right now and by extension, the state?
Hi, I'm at the INEC office in Bayelsa State, and these are non-sensitive materials still being sorted. Majority of the non-sensitive materials have already been moved to to the local government area, I can tell you for sure that the election fever in Bayelsa State is very high. People are very, very eager to vote. Yesterday, the governor announced public holiday for all civil servants. Students in primary and secondary schools have today proceeded on meet-and break. So everything is in place to ensure that eligible voters in Bayelsa State go out and vote. I'm being joined by the head of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC Bayelsa, Mr. Wilfred Ifoga, who will give us a feel of the level of preparation. I was speaking to you earlier on in the day on how far has INEC Bayelsa goes to ensure that residents of Bayelsa State have a good day tomorrow.
All right. For the materials we have received so far, especially the non-sensitive materials, we have actually deployed them to the local government areas. And, in Bayelsa, over 60% of the terrain that we crisscross is along the creeks and things like that. So if you look behind me, you can see life jackets. So these life jackets will actually be used by the personnel, including the security personnel. So, unlike other states that actually moved us, we directly moved from the Central Bank of Nigeria straight to the racks. So these materials you are seeing, these are the ones that will join them at the jetty and they'll be taken to the racks. So movement of materials, although others have actually gone ahead before today, but by today evening, everything concerning the election in the local government area, every material will move from here.
Earlier on, you said the sensitive materials at CBN, when would they be distributed?
Okay, anything from 8:30, they're already there. The party agents are there at the state levels. The electoral officers are there to sort out, because as at yesterday, they batched them into the various tracks. So from today, so anything from 10 o'clock, they should be able to start moving the materials to the jetty, for those of them going to the riverine area. Then those of them within the land area, of course, the buses, the vehicles that have been hired, to take them to the various tracks.
On Wednesday, I was here and I noticed that you had a high-powered designation meeting that has to do with security. Now, when it comes to Bayelsa, Bayelsa is always the flashpoint. What has INEC done different this time?
All right. Well, that is the old narrative. But if we look at activities before today, we've not really had any cause for concern because we've been engaging the Interagency Committee on Election Security. Outside the formal gathering, they also meet at the state level to also discuss on how to strategize to ensure that the electoral process is secure. I know they have grand plans on ground. And just recently, even the AIG, Amici Elumelu, who was posted here for the election purpose, was here to pay the rec to call and actually promised that if we need more assistance, of course, they are going to provide.
Now, you're head of voter education in Bayelsa State, and there's glaring hash crunch in the state, and people are complaining. Do you think it would discourage them from going out tomorrow to vote?
Well, I think I want everyone to understand this. The issue of cash and you moving to where you're supposed to, ordinarily, like what we normally say, when you're registering, you register in the place that's close to where you're staying. But we find out that in Nigeria, most people like going back home to register. Well, we know there's this cash crunch or something like that. But for those who really understand what they are going to do, I know before today they would have made preparations for how to make that move. But then, I doubt. I think those who take it very important, they might just be embarked on that journey. But we do hope they're able to get the means of going to their various localities where they are registered to be able to exercise their franchise.
Thank you, Mr. Foga.
Thanks for having me.
So Bayelsans are eager to vote. If you visit the markets, people are stocking their homes to ensure that they have all the food supplies, then they go out to exercise their franchise tomorrow.
Well, thank you very much, correspondent Dobra Timiwood, right there in Bayelsa State, giving us live updates. And I think it drives a point home when Mr. Okoye was saying some of these agents, or rather officials of INEC, will have to travel the high seas just to get to the polling unit. So, Mr. Okoye, that confirms the point you were making. But just quickly, 2015 results was announced Wednesday. 2019, it was on Monday. Speaking about the target of the agency, I know you always set targets for yourself. Is the goal to maybe beat what we've seen in previous times, just so Nigerians can understand? Are you planning to beat that Wednesday and Monday, which we saw in previous times?
Well, since the conclusion of the 2019 general election, the Commission continues to learn valuable lessons, and we continue to improve with every election. So our hope is that with this particular election, we will continue to improve. So there's a possibility that we may beat the record of 2019. So let us be hopeful. Nigerians want a speedy conclusion to this particular election so that we can begin preparations for the governorship and state assembly elections. So let us be hopeful and see how things go. And we are hopeful that with the level of preparations we have made, that there will be a speedy conclusion to this election.
So at least you don't expect any logistic challenges this time around? They're all supposed to deploy and get. What time are they expected to arrive every PU?
Well, there is no election that you can say you have 100% perfection. So we normally make allowance for a few hiccups here and there. But what is important is our fallback position, the preparations we have made in order to recover when there's any challenge. We expect our presiding officers to get to the polling unit as early as 7 and begin to set up so that they don't get overwhelmed by the voters if they are setting up very, very late. So we are hopeful that with all the measures we have in place, that over 90% of the polling units will open at 8:30.
So, Dr. Barade, now, what is the setup time? I mean, I know you say everything is supposed to function perfectly with the BVAS. In the event that something happens with one of the machines, what is the time lag between getting the new one set up and continuing with the process?
The Commission will be deploying people that we refer to as RATEX that will be supporting this machine on the field on the day of election. And these RATEX and the SPO are supposed to be going around with the devices that we have also provided as backup. So in case if there's any malfunction of any of the machine, if they can't fix it, the RATEX is there to fix those machines. If they can't fix it, then they replace.
So do you have any time limit within which they got to?
The RATEX is supposed to be
hovering around the area?
Yeah, the area. So if there's any malfunction, if there's any machine that needs to be fixed, then and they are mobile, so they need to. So since it's the same location, I don't think.
In the event that happens, are we supposed to gain time from the time that might have been lost between 8:30 and 2:30? Yeah, the
rule is that whatsoever is on the queue by 2:30 should be allowed to vote, even if it is past 2:30, as long as they are on the queue by that time, 2:30. If they're on the queue before 2:30, then they're allowed to cast their vote. So,
Mr. Okoye, just quickly finalize for us, confirm to us how many polling units to be expected to open on that particular day. 176,000, we understand?
176,606.
606?
Yes, and we are not going to deploy to 240 polling units because there are no registered voters in those polling units.
And how many ad hoc officers have been deployed for these elections?
For this election, we are going to deploy over 1.2 million ad hoc staff for this particular election.
That's a lot. And then are we also going to, I think INEC mentioned that they will now publish the figures, accredited figures, things like that?
Yes.
What part of it? Is it just that one for viewers, for regular voters to see?
Yeah. Let me understand.
At the back end.
Is the Mbayo that understand the back end? I don't understand the back end.
What we have before the mock exercise was that you just go to the IRF, you see the polling unit level result. But after with the mock exercise, what we did was also to push the accredited voters from the BVAS now also to the IRF. So you also see on the IRF now, you can also see the total number of accredited voters for each polling unit, also on the IRF. You are looking at the result. Apart from the one that will be recorded by the presiding officer on the form, you also see on top of that result the total number of accredited voters for that particular polling unit.
All right, so it promises to be an interesting one. It's election eve, so all of these items is expected to turn out smoothly. They're supposed to arrive at 7, voting starts at 8:30 and at 2:30, but if you are on the queue by 2:30 and you've not voted, the commission says you will be allowed to vote. So we hope that all will go well. You're also expected by law to conduct yourself decently. If you don't, the law expects that they can walk you out of that place so that you will vote. I'm sure that's not what you want. So, gentlemen, we want to thank you for coming on. Mr. Festus Okoye, National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee of INEC, as well as Dr. Lawrence Baide, Deputy Director ICT for INEC. Thank you for coming on, and all the best to both of you.